It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. My guest today is the Reverend Dr. Carletta Allen. She's the pastor for the Asbury United Methodist Church right here on West Street in Annapolis. And Dr. Allen, how are you doing today?
I am pretty well. I'm very well compared to an awful lot of people in this economy. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very scary moment right now in our history. Do you ever remember anything like this? I don't think any of us do.
I can't say that I do. And 9/11 is what comes to mind for an awful lot of us. But even that doesn't compare to what we're going through right now.
It's an extremely scary time because there's so many unknowns. When will this be over? Everybody in the world is aware that we're in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. Although it's interesting, I am finding, and maybe you can tell me what this might be in reference to, or how people react to some things. There are quite a few that haven't grasped onto the seriousness of this yet. Have you seen any of that?
I have, and I'm amazed at how many people seem not to be taking even the 6 feet, the social distancing, seriously. So it's really rather amazing to me. But what I know is that people want to believe what they want to believe. And in this country, one of the things that we value highly is autonomy. We just love being able to do what we want to do within the realms of the law, of course, and go where we want to go when we want to. And I think it's hard for an awful lot of people to believe that even we are subject to the confines of social distancing right now because we have an unseen enemy. And I think that's part of the problem. Even with 9/11, we had a sense of who the enemy was. But this is something we can't see. It's a bug. It's a virus. And I think that for some people, if they can't see it, if they can't feel it, it's not real.
Good point. You know, it's interesting, on your homepage for Asbury United Methodist Church, the tagline says, "A church that invites, welcomes, cares, and builds relationships for a changing world." Boy, if that doesn't sum up what we are right now. And how do you keep doing that? How do you keep inviting, welcoming, caring, and building relationships in this very changing world when we can't get together in groups beyond 10 people?
That is a great question, and it's a question for all of us who gather in any kind of a religious setting. I was thinking yesterday as I was meditating, there is a church historian and a writer by the name of Phyllis Tickle who has left us. But one of the things that she was writing on towards the end of her life was the emergent church. And her premise was that every 500 years or so, what we know as the Christian church undergoes a radical change. I mean, we're not talking about incremental stuff. We're talking about a radical revolution, often brought about by some external force. And her point was that we were in one of those 500-year cycles at the end of the 19th century. And I think that this really shows us how true that is, because we're never going to be the same. We are never going to go back. We're never going to go back to where we were after this. Some of the things that we are putting in place now in mainline Protestantism, some of the other churches had already started to do, but now we're forced to do them, and it's going to become the new normal. But it's all about relationships. As I have struggled in the past week or so to get up to speed with the technology and how to do online worship and that kind of thing, it's been frustrating because it's a steep learning curve for me. Other churches have been doing this for years. But what I know is that what matters most is the relationship, is the togetherness. So there are people who had never heard of Zoom 3 weeks ago who all of a sudden are so happy to see one another's faces, to hear one another's voices on that medium, because it is about connecting. It's always about connecting and relationship. So we'll just continue to use whatever technologies we need to. We'll continue to use the old-fashioned telephone to reach out to one another because we need to hear from one another and see one another. That is the essence of church. It isn't about a building. It's about us embodied and loving and caring for one another.
So you're now utilizing Zoom for reaching out to your congregants?
Yes. The past 2 weeks, we used Facebook Live. That was sort of a low bar for us. We already had a church Facebook page, so we could do that. And we needed a little bit more time to get Zoom right. We wanted to do it right. And so our tech team has expanded, and we've got some really good talent on there. And we're starting Zoom on this Sunday.
Now, I would suspect, and maybe I'm wrong in this assumption, and let me know if I am, you have a fair amount of older congregants that might not be online, that might not be tech-savvy, that might not have social media. How are you connecting with them?
The telephone, the good old-fashioned telephone. One of the things that we hadn't been using for a while was the old-fashioned telephone tree, and that has been resurrected. So we are now calling people. Because you're right, I do have a lot of older members who are not tech-savvy. And in certain circumstances, we have asked for them to have their children or their grandchildren to help them out with this kind of thing. But in this case, oftentimes that's not a good idea.
Yeah, we don't want younger people intermingling with older people that are at a higher risk. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection.
All right.
Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm speaking today via telephone because we are all socially distancing from one another with the Reverend Dr. Carletta Allen. She's the pastor of the Asbury United Methodist Church, and she has reverted to the old telephone tree, the calling people congregants by telephone, checking in with people that way, and also in the beginning of this with Facebook Live and now with Zoom. How has this been for you, not seeing people face-to-face? Is it more difficult as a pastor, as someone who's trying to help people?
It is a pain that I cannot describe, Donna. It really is. And I think that's what's breaking my heart more than anything. Social distancing is the antithesis of what we do. We are about socially connecting, and not being able to see people, to hug people, has just been very hard. And I am on several clergy Facebook groups, and this keeps coming up again and again, that this is so hard for us. One colleague said, this was before the complete stay-at-home order, that she was simply driving through neighborhoods. She lives in a small town, and she's just driving by people's houses and waving and praying for them from the driveway, because she needs and they need that connection. It's hard. It's really hard.
It's heartbreaking, actually.
Yes, it is.
It's heartbreaking, especially when I'm thinking about so many of the older members of our community that are so frightened right now and that do need those hugs and that need that face-to-face connection. The grandparents, the people that might be living on their own with nobody else at their homes.
Yes. It is a difficult thing not to be able to hold your grandchildren. Also, there are persons right now who are dependent on grandparents and great-grandparents to care for their children while they work, because they are a less costly source of babysitting. And that's not possible for some people right now. So there are just so many ramifications of this thing. And again, there's nobody to blame. There is no evil source to point to against whom we can take revenge. It's a virus, and there's so much uncertainty. What we know is that people are dying, people are getting sick, people are struggling. There was a clip that was going around social media of a physician whose son ran towards him, and he couldn't hold his son, and he just cried. And the little boy doesn't understand why Daddy can't hug him. Those are heartbreaking scenes, but that's what we're living through right now.
Now, on a normal day, and I don't know how this works with clergy, but that's why I'm reaching out to you. Are you called on for last rites?
Yes, and probably, and I mentioned this last Sunday, because we had a family death, not a member of the congregation, but a sister of one of my members. And what I was sharing was that one of the things, especially in the traditional African American church, burials are a big deal. An awful lot goes into sending our loved ones home. And I'm sure it's hard for everybody right now, but that 10 persons or less is a painful choice. First of all, it's got to be pretty quick. It's got to be simple. Many people were just opting for a simple graveside service or a service at the funeral home with something more expansive later. But how do you decide which family members can attend that, particularly if you're counting staff at the funeral home and there are 4 of them? How do you decide which 6 people can be there? Those are the kinds of decisions that we don't expect to have to make in our democracy, in our society. And yet that's where we are right now. So an awful lot of people are having a simple graveside something, and they're actually deferring the memorial service until whenever this passes. So there's all of this grief that sort of has to be held on to, because we need ritual.
Right.
And funerals help us to put that aside. I mean, that's done now. We've done the last loving thing for mama, granddad, whoever. But now we've got to hold that until some unknown date. And that just compounds the pain.
It really does. And you add into, I mean, that's the far end of one spectrum. The other side of this are the bursts, the celebratory things. We're going to have a bunch of people that will not have graduation ceremonies, probably. We're going to have a bunch of people that cannot get married right now, or if they are, I don't know how that's going to take place. Everything is going to be deferred.
I saw a piece on the news last night. I hadn't even thought about this, but mothers of preemies are not allowed to touch their premature babies because you can't get much more vulnerable than being a premature baby. And I can't imagine being a mom of a vulnerable little baby and not even being able to put my fingertip on my baby.
What do you say to somebody like that to bring them comfort?
Do you know something that I learned many years ago in seminary, and I'm so grateful for it? I'm so grateful for the professor that I had in pastoral care. One of the things that she made clear was that there were times when there were simply no words, that what we had to offer was our presence and our own tears, to simply be with people and weep, because it is so sad. And there are no real words of comfort.
On that note, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm talking today via telephone to Reverend Dr. Carletta Allen. She's the pastor of Asbury United Methodist Church here in Annapolis. Services and comfort and support is being done through on the old-fashioned telephone and through things like Facebook Live and Zoom. What else have you learned through this extremely weird period in our history?
Well, in my tradition, we would say, and God will provide. There are resources around us, in some cases that we weren't even aware of. There are people with skills and gifts that we weren't necessarily aware of. What I know about the congregation I serve is that we are going to love people, whatever it takes. We're going to figure it out. And because we do have a congregation that skews older, that means that there are fewer people to be out and about in ministry to them, but by golly, they are, and they're more than happy to do that. No one is going to go without. No one is going to be left behind, and that's a really good feeling. The other thing is that, and we know this all the time as clergy, but it isn't all up to me. I can't get to everybody right now. Even on the telephone, I can't call everybody every day. But there are people who are doing that, willingly doing that, enjoying doing that. And so there are testimonies that will come out of this time that will gladden the heart. Right now, everything just feels like chaos. But we know how to call somebody.
It really does feel like chaos. And we're looking to people like you or those people that you were talking about, the doers, the people that are going around without being asked, that are doing things, that are providing food, that are providing toilet paper for somebody because there's no toilet paper or paper towels right now.
I have a new mantra that I've been sharing, and that is, this ain't no snow day. Every year I would like to have a good blizzard, something that keeps us home for 4 or 5 days, so that we can just breathe and reconnect with family and bake cookies with our grandkids. This is not that. This is not that at all. And so it's just great to see the way that we are adapting and making sure that people get cared for, not just in the church, but in the community at large. All kinds of creative ways have been thought of and are being enacted to make sure, especially for the most vulnerable. I'll give you one example. This coming Sunday is Palm Sunday. And in my tradition, Palm Sunday is a big day. It is, for some people, as important as Easter. And so those palms are very meaningful to people. And even people who can't make it to worship know that someone is going to bring them their palms before that Sunday is over. And so this year the question was what to do with the palms, because the palm order came in. And a couple of my members decided, you know what, they're going to get their palms. They're going to have those palms in hand so that when they're participating in Palm Sunday worship online, by golly, they can wave those palms right where they are. We did a creative drop-off of palms, in a safe, hygienic, socially distant way, but we made sure that people had access to those palms. We also delivered them to the local long-term care facilities. We weren't sure if they would receive them, and although the person delivering couldn't go in, they did receive them. And so we moved it beyond our own congregation because those palms are really meaningful to people.
Mr. Rogers had this quote, look for the helpers, right?
Yes. Yes.
Those people delivering those palms, those people delivering food, socially distant, albeit, but those people that are stepping up where others can't right now. What do you want to say to the community that might not be listening to you on Zoom or certainly not in church right now, that can give them comfort during this very holy period of time, and not just for your congregants, but we're also going into Passover for the Jewish people?
One of the benefits of having congregants who have lived more than 80 years or 90 years, my eldest parishioner is 103 years old. I believe that this is a great time to listen to the wise ones, to listen to the elders, because to think about what they have lived through already. This is new for us. This is a game changer for us. But when you think about what they have lived through, 90 years, 95 years, 100 years, even 80 years. And they love to tell stories. They love to tell the stories of how they overcame. They love to tell the stories in my tradition of how God brought them through. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us to reach out to one another so that their testimonies of how God has brought them through other things, world wars and depressions and all of this stuff. It's an opportunity for those of us who were not there to listen to them and to honor them in listening to them, and for them to help calm our rattled nerves, because they look at you and smile and say, honey, God is still good. We need to reach out to the wise ones and the elders right now and just listen to the stories of how they have been through. I don't want to compare, but if not worse, at least as bad.
Reverend Dr. Carletta Allen, pastor, Asbury United Methodist Church in Annapolis, thank you very much for joining me today and for lending your wisdom and insight into this crazy period of time we're in right now.
Thank you, Donna, and be safe.
You stay well, ma'am. Again, thanks very much. We'll see you next week on the 1430 Connection.